Thank you for tuning in. This is going to be the third episode of the Redacted podcast. So we've had two already, and hopefully you've enjoyed them and you've stuck with me this long. So I thank you for that. This episode and this guest that we have on today, we did the interview and we almost didn't publish it. And I was thinking and watching it back, and after talking with her, and I'm like, well, is it that sensational enough? Is it that deep, dark of a secret to be worth putting out there? And then after thinking about it and listening to it again, I decided that it was. And this is a story of someone who had been abused by her parents, for lack of a better term, but it's an unconventional abuse, what you'd almost call a common abuse. And it's something that, as you listen to the story, you could think to yourself, some elements sound like good parenting, maybe even. And some people might think they're doing the right thing. But as they say, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And there's a lot of parents and there's a lot of kids out there. And if you listen to this and you learn something from it and it can help you in some way, that's why we put it out. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy. Okay, thanks for tuning into the Redacted podcast. We have our guest here who's been so gracious to come and speak with us today under the guise of being anonymous. In the back there, we got Pamela, our producer. She's been sworn to secrecy. She won't reveal who you are. Your voice has been changed a little bit, so we can't tell exactly. So thanks for coming out.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, you had a hell of a story, and it kind of caught my interest, and we can go back and talk about the beginning of it, but it caught my interest so much because I think the first thing you said to me was, with maybe wealthy kids or accomplished kids or something like that, which is kind of how you grew up, that not everything is what it seems.
Yeah, growing up and looking back from this day and explaining to people that I know now about my upbringing, they're very confused if I don't have like a 4-hour sit down with them, because they say, but all these great things happened. Why were you so depressed? Or why did you jump around so much? And without the full story, I think it's hard to understand and know the details for why all those things were happening at that time.
Yeah, and that's I think that's just something we can maybe help build some understanding by walking through the story and kind of telling what happened. So, from the beginning, you were adopted from China, right?
Yes, I was adopted from China when I was 6 months old, so I don't know much about my Chinese heritage, who
Wow.
adopted me, or the agency I was from, or anything relating to China, because I flew over from China to New York when I was 6 months old, so I didn't
Wow.
have any understanding of China, so
Yeah.
that's why when people ask, I'm like, I really have no idea. And then growing up, my adoptive parents, who are American, German, Irish, Italian,
Wow.
who are from New York,
Yeah.
they did not inform me about anything about my Chinese life. So
Did they get information on it?
they may have gotten information. They would not like to talk to me about it.
Okay.
When I was elementary school, I asked a couple questions, nothing too serious, but basically the end answer was, you're our child, you're American, period.
Okay. And I mean, to all intents and
hmm
purposes, you were, but you have to be a little curious about it. Now, did you say you figured out the city
Yes,
in China?
I
Okay.
know the city, but anything beyond that, I have no idea of.
What city was it?
Nanjing.
Nanjing. Where's
Yes.
that at?
It is the Middle East of China.
So
It's one of the big cities.
okay.
Yeah. One day I'll go back.
Okay. Do you know a lot about that area or the culture, the people, or
I do
anything?
not. I've done some YouTube documentaries and some Googling,
Okay.
but I don't have any firsthand information or experiences with it.
Okay. And you were born sometime, and we don't have to say specific, but
Mhm.
sometime in the mid to late 90s
Yes.
during that period.
Mhm.
And China still had one child implemented.
Yeah, so that could be one of the reasons why I was adopted out.
Yeah.
There's obviously could be dozen different assumptions of why I was given to an agency or
Yeah.
left on the street because we don't know.
Yeah. No, you
So
don't.
lots of things are up in the air about that.
But it seems maybe
Yeah, that would
kinda
be a strong one, contender.
likely as
Mhm.
to why. And that's kind of messed up. It's messed up in a way, and obviously you're here and happy now, and we don't have to debate which place is better to live, but it's messed up, and there's a lot of kids that ended up having to be adopted,
Mhm.
going somewhere else. A lot of bad stories from one child.
Yeah, definitely from that.
So I heard someone say it kind of wiped out a generation in China, a generation or two. And we're like, you didn't have the same amount of peers. And they ended up going a lot of different places and, just a lot of bad atrocities with that. So you came over to it was a pretty wealthy family, right?
Yeah, both
Okay.
mom and dad's side, they came from good, stable households, and
Okay.
then my dad had his own businesses throughout his life. He did law, district attorney things in Manhattan
Oh, wow.
for I don't know how many years, probably like between 5 and 10, realized he didn't like it, then went into the business world and was very successful there.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, grew up on Long Island for ages 6 months until about 5 years old, and then did some half summers and winters between Florida and New York.
A lot of New Yorkers come down to Florida.
Yes, I found that's a trend.
Yeah, right. So then at some point, you moved permanently down to Florida.
Yeah, for most of my life, from ages, I guess, 6 up until 18, I was in Florida.
Okay. So you're with a wealthy family
Hmm.
in Florida,
Yes.
which is people listening out there, that's like, wow, a wealthy family and to grow up in Florida. That sounds great
Oh, that's a
already.
dream.
And there's great things about it, but
Mhm.
your experience with it was, I guess, a little different than maybe what people would know, and kind of walk me through when things started happening.
Yeah, my life in New York, since I was very little, I don't remember much about. So I guess my first real memories started when I was in Florida
Okay.
in like the kindergarten age range. And very naive, young when I was little
Yeah.
in that range. Just, play with my sister at home, just very everyday things. But then around like,
Let me stop you there. So you
Mhm.
had a sister.
yes, also adopted from China. Not
Oh,
related to
okay.
me. She was from a different city.
And what's the age difference there?
3.5 years, and she is younger.
So she's 3.5 years
Mhm.
younger than you. So your first memories, just to back up, so you're like kindergarten age and you're playing with your 2, 3-year-old sister.
Yeah, just like the Barbies, the everyday things when you're at that age.
Okay. Okay. And then what were the first kind of things your parents had you involved in, or looking back at it now, when did things get a little strange?
Early elementary school, they wanted me to be obviously as successful as I could be. So I
Every parent,
was,
that's not.
yeah,
Yeah.
enrolled in a private school for my kindergarten and half of first grade.
Okay.
And that led to a string of many different schools I was jumping around from kindergarten up until I was 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well, kind of like at the beginning,
Mhm.
little so people can see. So you're jumping schools already
yeah, already
within
from
the first year.
first year and a half. In first grade, I was pulled out about halfway through. I was too young to know the details for this one and the reasoning why I was pulled out.
Okay.
But I just was like, it didn't really bother me at this time because I was still too young.
Yeah.
So I was doing school, but also started getting more involved in activities. And when I was
Like
four,
extracurricular
yeah,
activities and such. Okay.
and things like ice skating, choir, piano, violin, gymnastics. There were a lot of different extracurricular out of school things that I had to do.
You say had to do.
Yes,
Oh,
not all of them were by choice. And I think I was kind of a stubborn kid where I didn't really want to do them, but I didn't really have a choice, so I did them anyways.
okay.
Yeah, when I was in the early elementary stages, I would say ice skating, gymnastics, violin, choir were the one that stood out. There were some other little things like swimming, but that didn't last too long. Because I did ice skating and I did like a couple competitions, a handful, like between 5 and 10. I don't remember exactly, but I still had to like go to the rink,
Yeah.
practice, and
I mean, ice skating
mhm,
and gymnastics, just
mhm.
from my own experience, that's intense.
Yeah, it was definitely tough on the
Like the
body.
practice
Yeah, and
regimen.
I was still, little, growing, and
Now, if we're just kind of sticking in 5 to 10 years old,
mhm,
that grade school period, like you're signed up for all these activities,
yes.
all these different sports.
Mhm.
Which ones did you want to play?
I did not like ice skating. I
Didn't like it.
felt I was too flimsy, not graceful for it, but I just did it anyways. There was one girl who I was semi friends with. She was actually going to like compete in the Olympics. She was in the big training program,
Yeah.
and gymnastics was okay. I really enjoyed the
You
beam,
kind
but
of
the other
enjoyed that.
part of it, not so much. But it was more like I just wanted to do it because I liked going on the beam and having fun rather than
Yeah.
going to compete in it.
Okay.
I remember I did an art class for a little
You,
bit.
you just wanted to play.
Yeah, I
That's
wanted to
like
have fun.
you're just trying to play.
Yeah.
And maybe you weren't interested in the having aptitude or being good or winning competitions, but yeah, you're just trying to play at that point.
Yeah, I wanted to have a hobby, meet people who wanted to do the same activity with me, but I felt like my parents more were pushing me for a competition life rather than the hobby pastime for whatever
Yeah,
activity I was going in for.
just having fun with it. Yeah,
Yeah.
you weren't in it for that.
Mhm.
I kind of I have girls that are that age, and they do stuff, and I kind of tell them, if you don't want to do it
Mhm.
anymore, we won't sign you up again, or we won't keep you going in classes. But if it's something you want to keep doing,
Mhm.
by all means, do it. If it's not fun, it,
No, I think it's good like trying different things, but if it
yeah,
doesn't work out, you move on, try something else.
yeah, exactly. Um, so like, how many hours of practice were you maybe between all of these activities? That
I
was
think
every evening, pretty
it was,
much.
I want to say, at least 5 times a week. I get off from school, say 3 p.m., then from 3 to 9 or so, 3 to 8, I would be doing gymnastics,
Jeez,
violin. Every night would be something that
some
was going
activity.
on.
That's
Yeah.
insane.
And especially when you're only 6 years old, it was very draining.
Well, that's like you go to school at 8 and you
Mhm.
don't get done till 9. That's a 13-hour day
Mhm.
for a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old or an 8-year-old. And that's kind of, and doing things that maybe you don't have that much of an interest in. Like that sounds kind of awful.
Yeah, it was felt more forced and enjoyable after doing the activity for whether it was months or weeks whenever I
Yeah.
got sick of it finally. Because at
Yeah.
first it was cool and new, but then after having to do lessons and be more serious about it, I just didn't want it.
Yeah.
And then the other thing was when we moved to Florida, we were on a farm with horses, cats, dogs, 14 acres. So I was
That
also
sounds
horseback
wonderful
riding.
too.
Yeah, there's pros and cons
Yeah.
to the life,
Yeah.
but horses were also a big part of my growing up.
Okay.
Hmm.
Were you interested in that, or was that something that was kind of presented to you like you're going to be interested in horses?
Well, my mom rode when she was growing up and in college, and
Okay.
from New York to Florida, we had 2 horses. They were older.
Okay.
But just like how I was doing all the other different activities, horseback riding was one of the millions of things that I was also doing at the time. Yes.
So, you have all these activities going on, and then, so tell me about your schools. You switched schools a lot, even early on that started, something that continued, but just how many schools did you go to elementary for?
I can't name off the top of my head the exact without going school by school, but I want to say it was 10 to 12 different schools from kindergarten to I was 18 years old. And if we're just going to be focusing on the school topic right now, there are different reasons why I was in and out of schools.
Okay.
I think I stayed at a school for average of 7-8 months.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, kindergarten to first grade, that was only a year and a half. Second grade,
So you're not even finishing years at some of
no,
these
well,
places.
second grade I did a full year. It was this very hippie school.
Okay.
But I can say I've done private, public, Montessori, charter, homeschool, dual enrollment. Pretty much anything except for a boarding school I have had some taste of.
Wow.
Yeah, and some of the reasons I don't know when I was in elementary school why I was changing so much.
Yeah.
But as I got into middle school and high school, when things were getting a little tougher, I started to understand the reasonings why. When I was in sixth grade, I went to 2 different schools. School number 1 for the first half, sixth grade. School number 2 for the second half.
That's crazy.
And the reason for the change in the middle of that one was because we were in PE and we were all kind of just running. And by accident, the girl in front of me extended her leg out too much. I extended mine. We kind of got tango tripped. Nothing bad. It just happened.
Like a kid accident. That sounds like a really normal.
Yeah, we both tripped on each other, whatever. But when I went home, like I was obviously had some knee issues. Like it was a little bloody. And my mom got like super furious at the teacher, the PE teacher, and then the principal. The next day, she went into the principal and started like screaming.
Jeez.
I was out in like the waiting room outside of the principal's office, and she was like yelling. And then all I knew, 10 minutes later, she walked out and said, "We're leaving. You're never coming back here." So that's why I went in for another one. And I remember in 9th grade.
What was she saying? Do you remember why?
Why would you let this happen to my kid? Why didn't she get sent to the nurse's office? Why would you let her come home? Why didn't you call me? And I guess the PE teacher didn't think it was a big enough issue to call someone. I mean, the kid trips. Like, that probably happens 100 times a day.
My kids trip, probably 100 times a day.
Yeah, and when we were at PE and after our trip, they gave me a Band-Aid, some Neosporin, whatever, you'll get better. It was no big issue. It was just like
a basic little kid injury.
Yeah, some cuts on your leg, you'll be fine. But my mom really hyped it up to be this big, like, oh my God, she lost her leg or something.
So she was pretty overzealous.
Yeah, she's definitely a very protective parent and would throw things out of proportion very often. And then
they say now helicopter parent. Would that?
She was definitely more than a helicopter parent.
More than like a super helicopter, like a fighter jet parent.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So you're switching schools a ton. How was, at grade school, I know that's when you're making friends.
I did not have any friends. There was only one girl who I was friends with. I met her in the third grade.
Okay.
And the only reason why we remained friends was because she rode at the same barn that I did. We took lessons together, and she liked horses, so that kept us together. But
you had a consistent thing. Your schools weren't consistent, but
I never really got to hang out with her much because I would see her at school. I got taken out of that school. I would see her at the barn for the lesson, but even the barn for the lesson was not go hang out, play around. It was, you're here for your lesson, so you got to be serious and participating and improving on your skill.
Yeah.
But our friendship got cut short I think we probably stopped talking around 7th grade.
Okay.
So that was only like a 3 or 4 year friendship.
Wow.
Which
and that was
at that point was a lot to me.
And this whole time you live in the same, I think.
Yes.
You're living physically.
Yeah, from ages like 5 to 18, I'm in the same physical house address. It's not like I'm moving anywhere.
But you just keep jumping schools. And that's, I talk to friends now that friends, people I know, and they won't move because they don't want their kids to lose their friends. That's like a driving factor a lot of times in like, oh, we can't move until they graduate high school, or, you know, we don't want to move during this time because that's tough. And this is like the opposite. This is like, I mean, to say, how many schools did you say you went to?
A dozen. And that's not even exaggerating. It was literally a
In
dozen.
12 years of school, you went to a dozen schools.
Yeah. And it was like that one reason was the whole falling on the ground. It's not even a big deal. It happened.
No.
But then in the 9th grade, I was depressed at the time. I didn't want to do the work. And then for math class, I came home with a C. And they were used to me getting like A's just because up until then, it's kind of bologna sandwich work. It's not actual big schooling as much.
Bologna sandwich.
Yeah.
I like that.
So I come home with a C because now I don't have a math foundation because I've been jumping around so much. I don't know the long division. I don't know how the algebra.
Well, every school's a little different and at different spots.
I was just getting thrown in, taken out. So my STEM base is terrible. I have no foundation in that. So
this actually hurt.
Yeah, in the long run.
Your education.
Yeah.
And I think maybe it seems like your mom's intention was to give you the best. She was trying to make it almost perfect.
Yeah.
And if a school wasn't perfect, or if you weren't performing as she thought you should perform.
Something that the school is doing must be wrong. It couldn't be anything else, is what I think, what was going on in her mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, I come home with a C, and she
crazy.
Goes in and yells at the teacher for not teaching well. And I do say, and like I admit, like I was lazy, I was a kid. I didn't want to do the math homework. I didn't feel like studying. I didn't want to ask for help.
Yeah.
So very natural, I'm not doing that well. And she's like, well, you're never going to get into a good college with that on your report, so time to move schools again. So it was different scenarios like that. Or another time was I was homeschooling now because I was in and out of homeschooling. So every transition between a public, private, charter Montessori school, it just homeschooled for a little bit.
Intermittently.
Yeah. But
through grade school, middle school, high school, you're homeschooling for periods of time.
Yeah, and during this homeschool time, I didn't really learn anything educational-wise in the books for my school. It was more of just go back to sports and activities type of thing. Okay. Yeah, but if she saw like a school get ranked #1 in the county for that year, she's like, we gotta enroll her in this. This will be so good for her education. Okay. Which is in the end not, because I'm getting switched around so much. But
well, there's a lot of things that I kind of see that are really bad about this so far. And, it sounds like on the surface, oh, she's wanting the best for you.
Yeah.
And, I mean, all of this, 12 different schools, middle of the year, homeschooling, not making friends, not being able to follow along with coursework. It seems like the worst thing for you. It's like a recipe to mess up your education.
Yeah, it made me very unstable in terms of friendships, knowing how to talk to people. Yeah. And by the time I was like 14 or 13, I was very quiet, very shy, and I had a lot of issues communicating with people because I didn't have the practice that I should have been. Yeah. Because at school I was always the new kid, and no one wants to talk to the new kid that much.
It's like a professional new kid.
Yeah.
Jeez.
So that was a big thing to overcome later in life.
I mean, that had to just be super awkward. Like if a kid goes through 1 or 2 school changes in their life, in their 12 years, I mean, that's pretty big. I talk to adults that are like, man, I moved school once in middle school, and that screwed me up so bad, and that was the worst year of my life at that point. And here you are, just...
No, it was in and out every time. But it did lead to depression. Oh, and for me,
I can imagine.
Just not being able to talk to people. So I remember for one part of my life when I was probably like... It started when I was around 10 or 11, got worse from like 14 to 17. But if I don't really talk to anyone, if I'm more neutral, that's the easiest way to avoid conflict, not to get yelled at. Because I was also afraid of getting yelled at from my mom for not
Yeah.
doing well enough, whether with a sport, a music, or grades.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, well, if I look too sad, she's going to yell at me and tell me why I'm not appreciating what she's giving me enough. But if I look too happy, she's going to start taking things away. So
Yeah.
if I remain neutral, that's the best case scenario. So I can exist in life without having to deal with conflict.
Well, and
So, yeah.
it already seems right off the bat that your mother was kind of a huge source, and maybe more so than your dad was kind of you're trying to please her or just get her off your back, one of the two.
It was a combination of both.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, she was the main driving factor growing up of, I would say, a big source of my problems, which were depression, being antisocial at the time, not feeling good enough. And it was because she wanted everything to be perfect in her way. And I felt like I couldn't talk to anyone because there was no one else to talk to, because I didn't have a consistent, like, being around anyone else.
No, you weren't allowed to basically foster any kind of friendships or relationships.
And going back to the girl that I knew from the 3rd grade to the 7th grade, the one who I rode with, I had one sleepover in my life, and it was with her, probably around the 5th grade, and that took like a lot of convincing to be allowed to go to her house.
Yeah.
She came from a very good family, very nice people.
Yeah.
That was like my first and last sleepover of my kid life, because I went there, I had a great time. We rode bikes around the neighborhood, we made popcorn, we went swimming. I had a blast for that 24
awesome.
hours.
Yeah.
And that was something I wouldn't be able to do because I was always under supervision. Like, going to the grocery, I wasn't allowed to not touch the cart when I was little, and I had to, like, always be there. Like, I couldn't go to the other aisle to get cereal. So, like, having a friend to go biking around the neighborhood was, like, the dream. Then the next day I get home, and my mom was like, so what'd you guys do? How was it? So I told her what we did, and she's like, that's so dangerous. How did her mother let you go swimming, go on a bike ride, not be in the kitchen while they were cooking? What if you burned down? What if you got burned down the house or, like, got hurt or something? And I was like, huh?
You're in 5th grade at this point?
Yeah.
And you're just riding your bike out in their neighborhood?
Yeah, and I was like, what do you mean? I'm like, we were fine. We had a really good time. And she's like, nope, no more. You can't hang out with her. No more sleepover. This is bad. So I'm like, oh, I should never have told her that. I just kind of shot myself in the face for, like, any kind of future hanging out with people.
Yeah.
And then our friendship in the 7th grade ended, not by me and the girl not liking each other. It was because my mom thought that her mom was just too dangerous. So no more communicating. Because I didn't have a phone back then, so we were literally pen pals. And it was, like, really cute. We would write little notes to each other, mail them, get them back. And we did that for, like, 2 years when we were not riding. But then she's like, yeah, no more. So then...
Because she thought... I mean, did she ever expound on
She was also very against any kind of alcohol or anything.
Yeah.
And when I was older in life, she's like, I want you to sign a thing where you're like, never drink alcohol, never get drunk, never have sex before marriage. So she saw her mom having a glass of wine, and she's like, how could she do that? There's children here. It's not like she was drunk. She had one glass of wine.
You gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
Was this religious, or was this...
So, up until I was 13, 14, I didn't do anything religious at all. The closest thing I got to a religious practice was in choir. We would sing in the church on Sundays sometimes. But that was more for choir than for religion. And then I think the big switch was when I was at that 13, 14, however old, around that young teenager age. My mom and dad had someone die, one of their friends. They went to a funeral at this big church. And then from then on out, they're like, Christianity is everything. Now, they both grew up Catholic in classic school.
Okay.
But now they're like full. Well, she was more like Christian.
But you didn't have like I guess you didn't have a super religious upbringing.
No, I don't think it was religious at all.
Having you sign something like that.
Yeah, and that's when I think I was 16 or 17 when she said that. Like,
judging another mother for having a glass of wine, not not being drunk. She wasn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't like she was drunk. She just had a glass of wine.
Mm-hmm.
If you were religious, I guess maybe it would make more sense if it was some kind of a strict religion, but it almost makes it a little more batshit crazy.
Yeah.
That it was just.
Well, she was just very paranoid all the time.
Yeah,
So
like
I'm
off
like,
of
one
just
glass of wine will make her drunk.
judgment or paranoia or just like, man, that's kind of nuts.
But then after that funeral they went to, then it was like, oh, now we got to go to church. And if you wear something, I remember one day I had just a regular t-shirt on, not revealing at all.
Okay.
But you could see my nipples because I didn't wear a bra.
Okay.
She's like, oh, this is very bad. You need to be more conservative with your dressing. I'm like, this is literally a t-shirt. Like,
was it in your house or was it?
I don't remember exactly where I was. I just remember getting yelled at for it.
Jeez.
But it was probably, like, I didn't go anywhere at the time, so maybe I went out to, like, the mailbox or something, like, yeah.
Yeah.
So from that point on, she got more religious, but then she implemented practices like, you're going to go to hell if you do this, or the Bible says something against this, so you shouldn't do it. And you should always honor your mother and father. Like, that one kept coming back, and I was very fed up with that statement. And I'm like, I don't care. And that made me unreligious at the time. And I'm currently unreligious because I don't believe in it.
Well, and I don't think it didn't seem like it was from, I don't think religion was the problem. I think it sounds like everything else your mom did.
Yes.
And then she's using that as kind of a hammer to reinforce why she does this or why you should accept it. So between everything, extracurricular activities and switching schools and kind of almost keeping you from developing any friendships, what else? I mean, what are some... Was she really hard on you? Was she pushing you?
Exceptionally hard.
Okay.
All right. So to go back now, I guess, into more of a sports extracurricular term.
Okay.
For elementary school, I did those 10 different sports, music type things. Something that really stood out, and I don't know why this one was more than the other extracurricular things, but with the violin. For some reason, she was 10 times harder on that. I don't know if it's because she wanted to do the violin, but she never had the opportunity to. But I have very bad memories about the violin to this day. I would go to my lessons.
What age did you start violin?
4-ish. Up
4 years
until
old.
10-ish.
So you did it for 6 years.
Yes, and I did.
And you had... Did you like it at all? Did you have any interest in it, or...
The beginning was kind of the same as I'm just doing it to do it, which turned into a hatred because of the way I was treated when I had to play.
Okay.
So I had to do lessons 2 to 3 times a week.
Okay.
And then I also was in the symphony. And that was seasonal, but once a week on the weekends for like 2 hours in the morning. I saw they were terrible because she would yell at me, and obviously I'm young, so lots of mistakes happen. You play a wrong note, something's out of tune, whatever. You know, you're young and you're learning. It's not going to be perfect off the bat. But I play one wrong note, and she goes crazy, like batshit crazy, starts screaming at the top of her lungs, like, why didn't you do this right? Let's try it again. I do it again. It's not perfect. We just did this again. Why can't you get what you do? And like, practice takes time.
Is
and that's how you
this
do
at
it.
home, or is this...
This is at home. She would go completely nuts over...
So were your lessons 2-3 times a week? That was all at home?
So the lessons, we had to go to the teacher's place.
Okay.
And I think I had 2 different teachers at that time. And the practices had to be at home every day for 45 minutes to an hour. And it was horrible. It was probably the worst thing. And this is why, like, when I listen to the violin, sometimes I've had to tell friends to turn it off because all I could hear is her voice yelling.
Jeez.
Like,
what is she?
Why aren't you getting it? You need to do better. And it was just things of me playing the wrong note, not because I was doing it on purpose. It just happened. And then when the yelling wasn't good enough, she would like jam the violin into my neck, and it made me red, and it's very bad.
She was just kind of like the demeanor of it is probably what is hard for you to struggle with, is because it sounds like she was just trying to make you feel like garbage, and then putting some physical. So she's jamming it, so you're holding it, and she's like...
Yeah, because there are some instances where, like, I put it on the couch because I'm like, I don't want to do it anymore, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then she would pick it up and jam it in and say, you're doing it now.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's horrible. I mean, just to think of like a little kid, and it's... You can tell how much it still affects you, too. It's like PTSD over that. That's tough.
Yeah, so like out of all the sports, music things, that one's definitely the worst.
Yeah. And this is something that, I mean, you really didn't even want to do. This was all for her.
Yeah. And like right now, my assumption for it was she wanted to do it when she was a kid or growing up, but she didn't have the opportunity, so she's now making me do it. So she's like living her dreams through me, which is something I didn't want to do, like the violin. So there was a lot of pressure, but if anything, I associate the violin with force.
Jeez. And I think that's it's something very important for people to hear, because a lot of parents end up putting some of those unrealized dreams onto their kids.
Yeah.
And to see you here 15, 20 years later, and it still tears you up, it still emotionally affected you in such a strong way that, I mean, it's just, don't do this to your kids, guys. I mean, that's really horrible. I mean, these kind of things that we try to get our kids to do should be something that they enjoy, something that's fun for them, and, you know, teaches them about something. You know, you'd almost hope it would be a skill you can have your whole life. Like my kids are learning piano a little bit. And it's like one of those things I wished I learned so I could have it my whole life and see a piano and sit down and play it or something. But you won't even look at a violin. You know, you don't want to hear it. That's intense.
Yeah,
that's
and
really intense.
It was that, not having anyone to confine in that I felt safe to talk to, so I just would endure the pain at home, like mentally, physically. And I was able to get out of it when I was like 10 or 11. I don't know how. I think it was just always a battle between me and her, and my dad was very passive for the most part, and in a bit cowardly, because he would not stand up to her. Because, like, even though they're married, they can disagree on things, but...
It's like a very controlling...
What he was like, he even told me when I was older, I don't want to disagree with your mother because she's going to start screaming and it's going to make a whole ruckus, and I want to avoid that.
Yeah.
So, with him, I would talk to him more than her, but I couldn't go fully in depth because I'm like, there's nothing going to be done about it. It's just going to keep happening.
Yeah.
So, he did say, like, we could try different things. So after, I would say late middle school to high school, that's when I started getting focused.
Yeah.
And I did horseback riding and auto racing.
Okay.
And those became my two main things, and then everything else dropped off. But even with those two things, like, horses, like, I do love to this day. I have really good experience with them because, you know, living on 14 acres, it was a sport, but also I would go to the barn with an instructor to practice 3 times a week. But then I would ride at home, and just not being in the house, being like with an animal helped a lot.
That was probably like a safe place for you to be.
Yeah, so I competed in horseback riding. Like, I did shows when I was little, but then late middle school to middle of high school, I was competing every 2 weeks, I would say.
Okay.
big horse shows, doing really well, nationals. Everyone was like, wow, so much good stuff. And that's when I think people on the outside who met me, whether they were adults or kids, they were like, you're just a rich kid that gets everything.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel that way because everyone who's in those two sports are both also like financially well off.
Yeah. Those aren't inexpensive by any stretch.
So I did horse jumping for a very long time, and I would ride a lot. I would go and get up at 5 a.m. if I had school at 9 a.m.
Okay.
I would do all the horse chores, mucking the barn, sweeping, water, hay, grooming, come home, ride 2 to 3 horses. Because at that time now, we have 6 horses, 4 rideable.
Okay.
So then I'm riding 3 horses a day at home.
Okay.
And then lessons, I would do probably 2 horses.
Okay.
Or I was just riding, I would say average 3 horses a day, sometimes 4 or 5.
Wow.
But lots and lots of horseback riding.
Now, were you being pushed to do this, or was this something?
This was something that I did like.
Okay.
But it was more than I wanted. I didn't like how because riding was a hobby of mine, she turned it into more of a trophy child type situation of, look at my kid and her pony. Like, my pony got number 2 in Florida within the newspaper, and that's all she's like gloating about.
Yeah.
And so I felt more it was for recognition.
Did you feel proud of that?
I was very proud of it, but I'm like, I mainly want to do it just because I like the pony. Even if we don't show, I'll just ride in the backyard. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And there's like this fine line between trying to engage your kids into activities and competition to where it's for them. And then it seems like she's got a lot of these pushes, and you said trophy child. Like, your kid does something good, we get a little hit of dopamine up here, like, oh, they get an accolade, a little hit of dopamine. Somebody says, oh my God, she's so wonderful, little hit of dopamine, grades. Kind of the same thing, but, you have to keep from becoming, maybe she's, I don't know, addicted to that. That's something she's chasing, and you are the...
I think she's chasing the approval of others.
Yeah.
And then she gets the approval of others after success from her children.
Yeah.
So then if the children are not successful, she's not getting the approval. So now she needs to push the kids more.
And she's not getting that dopamine, that good feeling, because she seems like she was just an unhappy person.
Yes.
She
I don't
sounds
know how
very
that's
unhappy with
from,
herself.
But very insecure, like wouldn't let someone take a picture of her. We didn't have a single picture of 4 people out of the family in the house.
Wait a minute. You didn't have one picture?
We had pictures of me and my sister.
Okay.
And it was just
but of like your whole...
Nope,
not you had a family of 4.
There's no holiday photos around the house.
Does a picture exist
I don't
somewhere?
think a picture of the 4 of us together exists ever. Unless it was one that she didn't know was taken. Like, growing up, I maybe saw 3 photos of her because she didn't like pictures being taken back then or something. I remember one was on a horse and one like a school yearbook or something, but like pictures of her don't really exist because she would not allow it.
Jeez.
So it was some kind of insecurity thing.
Yeah, and then some.
Yeah, so
that's
it was
to
a
say the
physical
least.
insecurity of her, of her appearance or whatever was going through her mind, but also she likes to be the caretaker and I don't want to say leader.
Behind the scenes leader.
The head.
Yeah.
The top dog.
Yeah.
Because obviously in her family she was the top dog, or our family top dog, but
yeah. So, I mean, you're growing up through this, and I mean, I would call it abusive.
Yeah, and I didn't know that it was abusive. I thought this was all normal because
to an extent. I mean, it's not the worst thing anyone's ever gone through, obviously, but I think there's something, I mean, just emotionally abusive about not letting you develop friendships, pushing you to do things you don't want to do, and it's making up for her own insecurities, and I mean. Yeah, that's just really tough. What were your grades like in high school?
High school was a little rough. I would say I averaged out a B somehow.
Okay.
And I mean, she was mad about them, but
Okay.
it wasn't the worst of it. Like, I wasn't getting screamed at for that as
Okay.
much. I would get yelled at, but it wasn't like her top screaming level.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're in high school. You're isolated.
Yeah, because now that I'm
You
more
still haven't
conscious.
developed a lot of friendships.
Nope, because after the one girl who we were not allowed to talk to each other in the 7th grade,
Okay.
from 7th to 10, I literally had nobody and bouncing around schools. And I remember the girl from this
It's a very
elementary
fragile
school.
age too.
She told me, she's like, well, if you don't like where you live, you can always like move out. And this was from the 5th grade or something.
Yeah.
And that sentence like always stuck to me when she told me. I'm like, oh, I just have to make it till I'm 18, then I can go buy a apartment somewhere.
Yeah.
And then I was very depressed 9th grade going forward, maybe even 7th grade. I just remember I was like 10, 11, and I'm like, I was Googling things, how to move out, what to do with finances, just trying to like self-educate myself to prepare for when I'm 18, I'm moving out.
You're
And that was my
researching
goal.
in early high school
Yeah.
about moving out on your own.
Yes. And I remember like sitting at the computer looking at houses, like obviously what I was doing, not the best plan, but I'm like, okay, maybe if I do this
That's
and save up
crazy.
money here.
Yeah.
And when I was 14, I ended up working at a restaurant right next to their office.
Mhm.
So when they would go into the office, I would just walk over literally next door because I knew the owner. Then I would bus tables, fill the drinks. So I started working at a restaurant. It wasn't a lot.
At 14 or 15?
Yeah, I would only do like 2 or 3 hours under the table.
Yeah.
But, $10 an hour, it added up over time. And I was very conscious about my money, and I was like, I'm saving every dollar of it.
But you're like, what's strange about that is, I mean, most kids are like, okay, I want to get a car or I want to buy clothes. You're like, I mean, it kind of sounds like you're saving to move out.
Yeah, that
as
was
soon
my
as you
whole
can.
thing. And I didn't want, like, because they were providing food, housing. I didn't really pay for anything at this point because I'm still a kid. But I'm like, I want my own money. So even if I say no to moving out, I'm just going to go. Whether it's buy a car or buy an apartment or do something.
I mean, I think a lot of people wouldn't be able to relate with that. I mean, that's kind of a heavy thing now that you're thinking about it. Like a freshman in high school, you should be saving money to go to the movies. Or, man.
Well, the thing is, I wasn't allowed to go to the movies. And there was one situation.
You weren't allowed.
No, I mean, I could go with her, my dad, but not like go to the movies with friends if I had them. And there was during one homeschool group.
Is this through high school?
Oh, this is my whole life. I wasn't allowed to go to the movies. So this one high school group invited everyone. It wasn't just me. Like parents were allowed to go too, because like homeschool high school kids, I guess everyone's a helicopter parent, but not to my mom's extreme. So it was a kids animated movie.
Yeah.
And we get to the movie theater. My mom obviously was going to stay the whole time while we go to the movies. And there were a lot of people, because I guess all the homeschool kids were coming on this particular day.
Yeah.
And she said, it's too dangerous here. We need to go. And I was like, what do you mean we have to go? Because we lived in the country with the horses. So we just drove 35 minutes to the movie theater. We show up. We see the homeschool group. I wasn't like buddy-buddy with the people there, but I was in the same homeschool class with them, so I knew them.
Yeah.
So I was very excited because this is like a new thing for me. And I'm like 15 now.
Jeez.
And she said, nope, we're leaving. So we get to the movie theater and then we go back home. And it was just, I guess, too crowded, so it was too dangerous. I didn't understand the whole context, but I was like, what do you mean? And the other mothers even were like, why are you going to leave? And she's like, this is too stressful. This is too much for my kids. We need to go.
So she's projecting her own problems and her own issues onto you, and then depriving you of simple things like a little social time, a little fun, like a little normal kid fun.
Yeah.
Wow. And then, so obviously, there's no boyfriends. I mean, if there's no movies, there's no boyfriends.
There were no boyfriends, not even one of those, we dated for 2 weeks in middle school, hold hands type situations. My first boyfriend
Nothing.
was when I was 16 online.
Okay. So,
So
I mean,
it was
online you
interesting.
can, in person you definitely weren't
No, there
allowed
was
to.
because I wouldn't be able to hang out with him or anything, and I was depressed. I had no romantic
Yeah.
feelings. I had no want or motivation to even make a regular friend, and so I didn't think of boyfriends. But I met this really cool person in 10th grade when I went to a private school, and even still to this day, we're good friends. But
Okay.
I was at this one particular school for 1 year, and she was there, and I wasn't allowed to have any kind of social media, Facebook, Twitter, anything like that was a no. And my mom was like, they can steal your information. You could get kidnapped. They can see a picture of you.
Yeah.
Like, the chances of getting kidnapped from the Facebook, probably not. Like, there's a lot of
I mean,
bullying
a
and
little
stuff
little
online. But,
online
like,
safety. I don't think that's too
but,
strange, but I mean,
like, another instance was at one of our auto practices.
mhm.
Me and my sister were in line with the group, and the guy they're talking about, we are going to make cartoons for everyone. So
Yeah.
to get the app to make the cartoon, you need a Facebook. And I said, oh, I don't have Facebook. I'm not
Yeah.
allowed. They're like, what I want, we can make one, and then you don't have to use your name. You don't have to go on it ever. We're just gonna make an account for you,
Okay.
so you can have the app,
Like
and we can make the cartoons thing.
a little sneaky
But-
Facebook.
So it was not in my real name.
Okay.
I never logged on to it because I also have a guilty conscience. I'm like, I can't do this behind her back.
Okay.
So
Was it a guilty conscience or was it fear?
both. But anyways, yeah. So Facebook was made, but again, never went on it, not in my real name. I'm like, okay, this doesn't really count because
Yeah.
it's just to make the stupid little cartoon.
Yeah.
Fast forward 1 month, cartoons made, it was all good, whatever. Completely forget it ever happened, like the Facebook count, because
Yeah.
it was like minor. My sister got mad at me for something. She tells my mom that I have a Facebook. My mom took away my laptop for about 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I told her, I'm like, I promise you, I never went on. It was not even in my real name.
Yeah.
And she's like, you disobeyed me, and this is what you get. And then,
So the
that was bad.
boyfriend you met online.
Yeah, so then after that,
I mean, that had to be sneaky.
yeah, it definitely was sneaky. And I would say the boyfriend happened about 2 years after that incident.
Yeah.
And the girl from school, from high school, like, we'll just call her X.
Yeah.
X introduced me to like Skype and this one video game.
Okay.
And she's like, well,
Like
we
an
can play
online
video
like an
games.
online game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like nothing bad, just a stupid little
Yeah.
game. And she wanted to stay friends after we both parted from the school. So she's like, we could call each other on Skype and stuff. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. Now again, I'm not allowed to have it, but I'm like, I really want to hang out with her, but I can't. Like, I probably was able to see her once every 2 months,
Oh jeez.
but like it was very little. Cause at that point now I'm 16, so I'm able to go to her house for a couple hours and then get picked up. But I'm like, it's something, and I appreciated it once
At
every 2 months.
16, that's incredibly restrictive.
So we would Skype her, but then she put me in this like group of some people all over the US.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is like the coolest thing ever. Like, I could just talk to people. And even though they're strangers, we're having some cool conversation.
Yeah.
And it was mostly just dumb video game related things from high school students, college students.
Did your mom know about this?
No, this was all at 10 p.m. under the covers, very, very sneaky.
So this is sneaky.
Yeah, this is
Sneaky,
my
sneaky.
first act of rebellion. So, this one particular guy, I really liked his personality, and we
Yeah.
started now just talking one on one, and not only during the video game session with all the other 10 people.
Yeah.
And he was like, "Yeah, if we were in person or something, we would date." So I guess we casually dated.
Just
from
online.
16 to 17.
Okay.
I wouldn't call myself very serious. I'm like, okay, he's cute. We talk.
Yeah.
And that's basically it.
That's about it. Okay.
And then when I was 17, him and his family came to Florida from Illinois for vacation.
So he's from Illinois.
Yes.
Okay.
So I was like, oh my gosh, I want to meet you. But how am I going to meet you? And he knew about my parents because this is now because I have Skype up
Yeah.
in my room running, just to talk to people, they heard all the yelling. Like, all these people online, they were like, this is not normal, the amount of yelling that goes on in your house. And I'm like, what do you mean?
Oh,
Because,
so they can hear your parents
yeah,
arguing or screaming or
my mom and dad yelling at each other or mom and dad yelling at me type of thing. And because they wouldn't yell in front of other people if we had a guest in the house or when we were in public,
okay.
it was always more of a behind the scenes yelling type of thing because they want to look good in front of other people.
I mean, was there just a lot of that growing up? A lot of
Yeah. But I thought this all perfectly normal. Every night people yelling at each other. This is how every family goes. And then they're telling
every
me now
night people
on
yelling at
Skype,
each
like
other.
these strange high schoolers from across the US are like,
Yeah.
this is not normal. And I'm like, I was so confused. So then
Was that one of your first little inklings at that? Was
yeah, that was my first thing.
where you're like, maybe something is a little fucked up with this.
Yeah, like I didn't know what exactly it was, but this was my first sign of me questioning it. So now this guy and his family, they come to Florida.
Okay.
So I was like,
That had to be exciting.
it was very exciting, but I was very nervous because I've never snuck out of my house. Like, even though I couldn't see people, I just would suffer from being literally alone in the house, homeschooled, and having the horses and doing things to, okay, I'm going to do this once, and it's going to be fine. I don't think he's a murderer or anything from online. So I said I would get dropped off at X's house for my 4 hours. I would usually be at her house between like 3 to 5 hours.
Yeah.
Like, it was a little bit less than half a day. And then my mom would come pick me up. So I got dropped off at her house, and she knew the plan. X was like, okay, so you can get dropped off at my house, and he can come pick you up.
Okay.
So me and him, we went to the beach.
A little secret.
Yeah, secret. It's my first date, first time anything with a guy. So, like,
okay.
Interesting. It went pretty well. Like,
yeah.
Went out to brunch, walked by the beach.
Wow.
And then got picked up. My mom knew nothing about it. The only people who knew, I guess, were this online friend group and X.
Were you like sweating it out?
I mean, I was definitely
thinking you're gonna get caught afterwards.
Well, during the whole brunch thing, because we were still in the same city as her, like chances were she's probably not going to this exact brunch place. But I'm like very anxious, like she could show up any time and like murder us both.
Oh my god!
But I'm like, hey,
what would she have done?
She probably would have started screaming and taken me out of there, and maybe called the cops. Like I didn't know what was going to happen. I'm like, I don't want to find out. Yeah.
And I think you kind of struck on something there, like, oh, he's not a murderer.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that I guess being naive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to this point, 17, 18, you're probably a lot more naive than the average.
Yeah, because I was very isolated. And while most people have little chances and they have small little events that build up to big things, I just kind of get pushed into them, and I take it as life brings it. But
I mean, that's an important thing, because a lot of kids, like you said, you get incremental freedom that allows you to kind of build up your senses, your your danger, what to do, what not to do, and you kind of get these incremental bigger and bigger doses of freedom as you grow up. And that's what, by the time you are 18, that
you're prepared for it.
You're as prepared as you can be. But, 16, 17, like kids that age should be kind of doing their own thing under the watch of their parents. Like that's what a parent's there for, to like guide you a little bit and nudge you back on the right path at that point. So you should be practicing your independence.
But the thing was, I was not allowed to be independent, and I don't consider myself a rebel from up until 16. Like, I didn't really step outside the lines because I was too afraid to, and I didn't want to push the boundaries. And I'm like, honestly, I just wanted to be a good kid. And then when I was 16, I was just so frustrated, and I just wanted to go. So I'm like,
so your first act of rebellion was like over a boy.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm already depressed.
Yeah.
I already I wasn't ever suicidal because I've always been optimistic, but I'm like, I already don't want to be here. So literally anywhere could be better than here, so I'll just do it.
What was the depression like? Was it just like an overall sadness? Was it like, was it physically taking you over where your body just felt tired, worn out? Like, what was that?
My depression kept me to myself. I didn't after not being after not having the chance to talk to people when I was younger. I decided it was more of an internal breakdown that was crumbling for many years. So I started, my motivation dropped.
Yeah.
And then I think my moods were very heavy.
Okay.
Everything I did costed 10 times more effort.
Yeah.
Whether it was to go ride the horse, to go vacuum the house, like it just made everything harder to do. But I'm like, hey, I just got to do it.
You're just kind of plugging through.
Yeah.
You're not, a normal, energetic teenager, excited for the future, or excited to meet up with their friends, or excited to go to school.
Like the depression definitely heavily weighed into school because I didn't want to do the work, so I was just taking it as and I didn't want to reach out to anybody, and I didn't know I could like talk to someone at school. Maybe something would change, but also at school, some of the other people that briefly knew my mom was like, "You have a great life." So I'm like, they're not going to understand, and I don't know if I should share this with them, so I didn't do anything about it.
And that's kind of tough. I mean, because from the outside, things look really great. You live in a nice house. You got horses, your own horses. That sounds like a dream. Wealthy family. But under the surface, there's pressure, depression. You're not learning the skills you need to be a successful adult. And when we look at parenting, really the grand point of parenting is to make a successful adult. You raise a kid, hopefully they learn all the skills and everything they can while they're with you, and then you get to see them go out in the world and hopefully be happy and functioning and just kind of living in the world. And it seems like your mother, your adopted mother, is raising you for her, and for basically, instead of what she could give you to go out in the world, it's what could you give her.
Yeah, it felt like she was trying to fill a void in her soul that she was never able to get.
Yeah.
And I was more of just a vessel to carry out actions and different things to make her feel better.
Did you ever get a sense that did it ever just strike you like she doesn't give a shit about me? Or
I did not know that until I was about 18,
happiness.
19.
You couldn't.
I was unaware.
You thought parents were just maybe like that.
Yeah, I thought parents were like that. And it wasn't until I was an older teen when I started realizing that after. So back to the guy who I dated online and met once.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we kind of sidetracked from that.
That's all good.
But I was 17. This is like the summer of 17 before I turned 18 in the winter.
Yeah.
I saved up about $5,000 from all these side restaurant hours.
Oh, geez.
Because I didn't spend any money. I was like...
Well, you weren't going out anywhere.
I wasn't going out. I didn't have to buy food or pay rent or anything, so I just...
And did you care about clothes or fashion or any of that?
Not really. Like, any kind of standard clothes she would buy.
Yeah.
Like, when it came to material items, as long as she approved of it, you can have it. I wanted the newest saddle. Sure, that's no problem.
Okay.
This really cool toy, remote control car. Sure, you can have it. So long as she approved of it, I could get it. But I wasn't very greedy in that way because I have no want for this stuff, so I didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
So I was paid under the table because I was like illegally working in these restaurants, mom and pop.
Yeah.
So it was literally all in a drawer, about $5,000. And when I was 18, the plan is now to buy an apartment in the city I was in, or just buy a car and go from there just to get away and drive somewhere. I don't care where.
You would.
It was gonna be one of the two.
You would still be in high school when you turned 18.
I technically should have graduated, but I was doing a homeschool / dual enroll course at the local college.
Oh.
So I was doing one like history course at this homeschool place.
Okay.
And I'd go just like once or twice a week, do the class for 2 hours, and come back home.
Yeah.
But then for the state college class. I was enrolled in college courses with college people,
Yeah.
and I did about 27 credits, but I was failing miserably.
Oh, geez.
Like 1.7 GPA, it was horrible.
Yeah.
But they didn't know about that because I just didn't talk about it.
No.
And so that's where I was in terms of school. I didn't have a GED. I didn't have high school diploma, but I was doing college work because they wanted me to get my they wanted me to get my AA degree the same time I finished high school when I was 19.
Okay.
Because they said that would be better for me because knock them both out with one stone, which I guess in theory it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
They didn't know about my alternative plans because I couldn't talk to them about moving out because I wasn't allowed to.
Your secret runaway plan.
Yeah, so, and I do feel like because I was not able to talk to her, I would get a no or screamed at. My default from 15, 16-year-olds was just don't talk about it because it's not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, summer of 17, I have money saved and I'm just going to keep working these restaurants because I was only doing a couple hours a week, but it all added up.
Yeah.
So I was getting like $10 an hour, but I was still riding and I was still racing cars. And even though I was racing cars and a professional, I had my racing license at the time, I was not allowed to drive a regular commuter car. And people were very confused of that. Like on the race team.
Did you have a driver's license?
I did not. I didn't get my driver's license until I was 19 or 20. And
whoa,
the people on the race team, my coaches.
You just weren't allowed.
I wasn't allowed.
Wow.
And I wasn't allowed to drive with most adults, unless my parents knew you really well.
But you're racing.
Yeah, I was on a karting team to do F2000.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I was doing really well.
I mean, that takes a lot of motor skills or
I literally
driving skills.
So when I was doing the racing and I was homeschooled, because if I was in a school, I would just go after school. But if I was in school, I would be dropped off at like 10 a.m. and have my lessons till like 4 p.m. a couple times a week. So
this is racing?
Yes, karting.
How did that come? Was that something you wanted to do?
My dad was super into NASCAR growing up. I did not care about NASCAR, but he was a scorer at a local track.
Okay.
And sometimes he would take me and I would just watch the races, but I had no interest in doing it.
Okay.
And then one of his coworkers from that racetrack said, "You should get involved in something open wheel. I think you'll really enjoy it."
Yeah.
So we ended up going to this open wheel karting track.
Yeah.
And I did the rental carts. I thought that was so fun. And then I started doing the local competitions, like citywide and then state. And then I started doing the lessons into international. So
that sounds kind of awesome.
That's how the whole process built up from start to getting on the team and racing competitively.
Wow.
But my teachers, they always were like, so you're racing at international level and the next season you'll be in a big car. Yeah. Not just a kart anymore, but a car that most people, like, they don't let you drive it unless you have a background.
Oh, yeah, of course.
He said, "Why aren't you allowed to drive a regular car?" And now they let me drive their car around the track and stuff and around, like, the little stuff, but, like, not on the road because it was illegal.
Yeah.
But I was like, well, my mom doesn't really let me do anything, you know? And he's like, well, because he kind of got it, but also at the same time, he's like, you've been doing this professionally. You can't drive the cart or the regular car. So that's how I differentiate to people. Racing on a track is for sport. Yeah. Driving a car on the road is for independence. Yeah. So those were the reasons why I wasn't allowed to do it, because my mom wanted me to depend on her. Oh, yeah. I wasn't allowed to be independent.
And that seems to be...
That's the recurring case around here.
Yeah, that seems to be kind of a bit of a theme. Mm-hmm. Is, I guess they talk about narcissism a lot, where it's isolating your kid and then kind of breaking them down, berating them, keeping them easy to control. She didn't want any rebelliousness. She didn't want disagreements. She didn't want any of that. Yeah. A lot of it's just about, was she ever nice, or did she ever praise you? Or was it more just punishment when you didn't?
There was definitely punishment when it did not go well, 100% there, across the board for everything. Yeah. In terms of getting praise, I'm trying to think, like, right now of when I got a good job. I would get a good job, like, or at the horse competition, you get first place, good job, you did it well. but it was very quick. It wasn't big.
Yeah.
And the thing is, the bads highly outweighed the good.
Yeah.
And then
Just
in
being
terms of
overcritical.
good memories, I can't think of any good memories from the house growing up. The only good memories I could remember were like going to Disney, because for our birthdays or something, we would go.
Yeah.
We had the annual pass.
Yeah.
But that was more of a go up for the day, come back type trip.
Yeah.
There was no yelling at Disney or stuff. It was more just go on the ride and have fun.
Jeez.
But other than those little things, I can't remember.
So, tell me about your big escape. You've been saving your money up.
Yeah, so my money was
Got
going to either
$5,000 in a
get
drawer.
some cheap car or apartment. But then my dad got arrested that summer.
Oh, jeez.
I still to this day don't know the full details because they didn't tell me at the time. But they owned a medical testing lab. And there's a lot of paperwork and different documents that are involved.
Yeah.
Some paperwork or document of some sort was mislabeled or misprinted or forged or something. Like, I don't want to say something I just don't know, but it's something along the line of the documents.
Yeah.
So now he's in jail. And we don't know for how long. And this is like new. This literally, no one had this coming. It was just, they came to the office, they arrested him, and we're like, huh? What happened?
Jeez.
And I think it was like a $10,000 bail that was posted.
Okay.
Now, even though they have money in the account, my mom did not have access to that money, especially that large of amount, because she would just kind of go out and spend my dad's money. Because my dad, he was always the head of the business.
Yeah.
First, he owned a motel. Now he owns a medical testing lab.
Yeah.
She didn't have a career. I know she worked as a florist when she was in college, but
Yeah.
when I was alive, she was in and out of a nursing program, did not finish as far as I know, and would just kind of go out, spend the money and type of thing. So there was a limit, I guess, on her. Because I don't know all their financing, but she did not have access to $10,000 at that time. So I decided, because I wanted to do the most I could, and I know money comes and goes.
Did she bring this up? I mean, was she saying to you, like, I don't have the money to get your dad out of jail? Is she saying
Well, first it was
this?
just freaking out. She was calling a lot of people. What should I do? How should I do this? And then I thought about, I'm like, well, I could help him, but I don't know. I really need to move out. And then she was like, can I borrow some of your money? And then I just felt really bad and really guilty. And I'm like, this is a very high level sign of urgency that we need it now.
Yeah.
So I ended up giving them $5,000, literally all of it, just because I'm like, I'll find another way. And I felt like if I didn't do that, I would have felt like really guilty, or have something in the back of my mind like something could have been done, but I didn't do it.
You're giving,
I did it.
You're giving what you think is you're giving them $5,000 to get your dad out of jail.
Yeah.
Your parents, who are very wealthy. I mean, you have how many horses?
We had 6 horses, all $20,000 to $40,000. Like,
You have 6 horses, but you need to give your mom $5,000. Now, did they ever pay that back?
They never gave it to me like that, no. But I'm not asking for it because money's money. I don't care about it.
No, but something's weird about that. Like, she just, I mean, if she knew your plan, do you think maybe
No, she knew my
she
plan.
just
There would be
didn't want you to have cash?
I don't know. I think it was just a sign of urgency. We need it now.
Yeah, but I mean,
So
obviously they had to have
mm-hmm.
$5,000.
I don't know if she
to
couldn't get
repay their-
into a bank account.
But afterwards,
I have no idea.
that's crazy.
So yeah, because remember, they don't share any detail of their stuff with me. So I just kind of guess and hope and assume. And
Like if I
That's all I did.
borrowed money from my kid and I had it, I mean, they obviously they weren't struggling financially, right?
No,
I mean,
they were not.
from
struggling.
what
They
you
were
could
fine.
see.
Yeah.
Like, how fucking weird. Like, I couldn't imagine not.
I just assume maybe because all the bank accounts and all the income was under his name and he can't get to it. She can't get
But
to it.
he was out of
But I
jail.
don't.
You bailed him out.
Well, yeah, so he was in jail for a week and then he came out. And then I don't know what happened.
Did he know that you lent him money? Or?
Yeah. So now back to the plan of leaving. I tell this guy from Illinois, I'm like, well, I had money. Now it's gone. And I told him the whole situation.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, okay, I really want you to get out of that situation. So
Yeah.
what if I buy you a plane ticket 2 days after your birthday and you fly up to Illinois? And I'm like, let me think about it. So I spent like 2 weeks thinking about it or however long. And I'm like, to my friend X, I was like, should I do this? I don't know how this is going to go. I've met him once. I've never been to Illinois. I've never really left the house. Should I do this?
You weren't missing much.
So she's like, well, just let me know what your plan is because we're young. She's like, well, I don't know.
Yeah, fuck it.
Yeah. So I guess it was October. It wasn't too far below. I'm like, okay, let's go with that. And then I ended up.
So this is your plan to escape.
Yeah. And I ended up getting $100 from my neighbor because I was helping him with his tractor.
Okay.
So now I have $100 to move out. So I told X, I said,
did you ever ask your parents for that $5,000? You never brought it up? You were never like, hey, about that $5,000?
I didn't care at this point. Really? I don't know if it was a depression anything.
This is your plan, though. You've been making this as a plan since you were 14.
Mm-hmm.
Working little jobs and just literally stuffing it in a drawer, not buying anything, not spending it on anything, just to get out. So if you wanted to get out, you would have your own money. And you just...
I guess maybe I was too afraid to ask them.
Yeah.
Or they would... Well, at one point, they did say, like, oh, we'll put it to your college or something. And I just didn't care about college. So I'm like, whatever. So yeah, I accepted the plane ticket from him. And so the new plan is now, they hired like an Uber driver from my house to the airport. And he did pay for the Uber and the plane ticket. And then I had $100 and I had literally a suitcase, a little bag, and a backpack. Yeah. And that's what I left with to Illinois.
Jeez.
I got on the plane.
And nobody knew.
I told X, but she didn't think I was serious. She's like, you're not very gutsy. You've never done anything
Nobody
like
in
this.
your family knew.
No one in my family. And what I did was I wrote like a 3-page handwritten note, put it behind a picture because I didn't want them to see it and then like go to the airport and then stop me. So I put on my desk, we'll call soon. Don't worry. Something like that, like 2 little sentences. And then put the big note behind the table. And then I was like, I was going to tell them after I got to Illinois that the big note is there in case they were like to cut me off or anything, and that note like explained like everything.
Yeah.
So I'm on the plane. Obviously, you silence your phone.
This is 2 days.
Yeah, I just
after you turned 18.
Because I didn't want to do it when I was younger because I didn't want any legal complications. And also remember, I don't really have any.
That's a lot of forethought into that.
I don't have any real. I have my state ID. And then I scoured the house for my social security card. So that's my only like form of identification. Jeez. So I was just kind of hoping like that would get me something once I move out. Because obviously I did want to get a job once I move out.
Yeah.
So I land and then I'm still on the plane. And that's when we're stopped, waiting that 30 minutes to get off the plane. Turn on my phone. I'm not kidding. 100 missed calls / text messages. They're all blowing it up. They're like, where are you? And like at this point, I was only gone for like 6 hours or something. Because it's like a 3-hour plane ride there. I got there an hour before.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like I was gone for a full day or anything.
Yeah.
And how I did this was because she went out shopping. My sister was at school. So that's when I'm like, okay, now's the time to like eat it. And she kind of went on like a regular shopping schedule in the afternoon. So I knew I'm like, she's probably going to be out. And that's like my 3-hour, the home alone time, so we'll probably do the Uber right now.
You had this down to a science.
Yeah.
You're like Andy Dufresne in the Shawshank Redemption with this.
So I checked my phone, and I'm like, I kind of assumed this was going to happen.
Yeah.
But I'm reading all these text messages, and I still have all these texts to this day just because I almost got a restraining order on her, but
oh wow,
I thought it was going to have to be a whole legal case, but she was like, call, call, call. Where are you? Are you okay? Or did you get kidnapped? We called X. We talked to her parents. Like, I'm reading all these text messages, and I'm like, oh, God, this is more dramatic than I thought.
Yeah.
And then one of them said, we called the FBI. And I'm like, huh? So I ended up calling her back.
FBI.
And she's screaming on the phone. And I'm on the plane, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, she's telling me how my dad's on the floor having a heart attack. The police were at the house. And the police were at the house because I had to speak to one of the officers.
Oh, jeez.
The FBI were called because apparently there could have been a kidnapping. I said, no, I willingly left. I'm an adult. I can do this. Yeah. And that's why I wanted to wait till I was 18 because I didn't want the whole thing when I was 16 or 17 to play out.
I gotcha.
So during this airport thing, I'm just trying to like say, I'm here. I should have just hung up on them.
Yeah.
But I didn't know better.
You're on the plane.
I felt obligated that I had to talk to her and everybody. And then my dad's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was mostly his concern was, are you okay? Her concern was, why are you doing this? You're rebelling. You're a terrible person.
You're hurting me.
That. Yeah, and it was basically,
that's what she's saying. She's saying
you're hurting me. And she's like, I need you home.
Why are you hurting me?
And now the whole thing is, you can't survive without me. Yeah. And you can't get a job. No one's going to hire you. And then she called me a mail order bride and all of that.
Mail order bride?
Yeah, that was in one of the text messages.
How does that make sense?
I guess it's because I ran away with the guy I met online.
Oh, Jesus.
As teenagers. So then he picked me up from the airport. We went back to his apartment. Yeah. I was very...
Are you anxious?
Oh, I was like crying the whole time. Like breaking down.
Dread? Are you just like full of dread?
It wasn't more dread. It was more... Everything is new. Yeah. Like this is an extremely new situation for me to be in. Like... moving out of the house, but running away, but also a new state, but also people I don't know and no one knows. Like, there was a lot of...
Well, it's the independence. I mean, that's like, you went from nothing to...
Literally everything.
To everything. Like,
in like
went
3
from
hours.
No boyfriend. Yeah, in 3 hours. Yeah. You go from not even having, like, practice boyfriends.
No, there was no practice.
To, like... Literally, you're moving in.
Yeah, second day meeting him, we just
with a dude from the internet.
And it was scary. And their ex was like, be careful. Yeah. We don't know. But from all the other internet friends who were around the 18-year-old, they're like, he's probably fine. He's not going to murder you.
Yeah.
He's just another 18-year-old trying to help you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so in Illinois, the first 3 days, I did not leave the room. I was very in shock.
Yeah.
Just crying. I did not eat for 3 days. My body wasn't functioning because of everything that happened. And then after the week, like I started...
That's a huge change. I mean, wow.
Mm-hmm. After a week, I started like walking around. But the weird thing was, 2 cops from the state school that he was going to, or it might have been like 3 times, but anyways, they came and they knocked on our door. And they were like, are you okay? We got calls and apparently... you're the girl and this is the guy. I got to make sure you're safe. And I'm like, yeah. And they looked around the apartment and looked normal. They're like, okay, we're good. Bye. So, yeah, the police literally knocked on the door to do checkups.
Was this from your mom, maybe?
Yeah.
Did you tell her where you were staying?
I did not tell her the city. I did not tell her anything. I remember when she was on the phone with X, and I was on the plane, so I didn't overhear the conversation, but my mom was yelling at X and her mom.
Okay.
And... obviously, her mom didn't know anything.
Yeah.
But she was like, how could you let her do this? Yeah. I thought you were a friend. You would have prevented it. And X just started crying. Like, we're just kids. When X knew about my situation, so she wanted me out. And then my mom was threatening her parents with the cops and the FBI. And her mom's like, what are you talking about? So, yeah. So, I'm guessing my mom sent the cops up there. I think they wanted us to either get arrested or me to get sent back. But they found, like... nothing looks super fishy. You're not hostage, so they let it be.
Well, yeah, you're an adult.
Yeah.
You could do whatever you want at that point. So you live up there, and I mean, you got to get, a job. You got to find a way to make money, and now you're in a relationship. And how did that feel? Was it? Because it's freedom, but it's responsibility. It's freedom, but it's responsibility, right?
And the responsibility part was, I guess, one of the easier parts because when I was living at home, I was still in charge of like every single chore, and that's what my grandpa would call me, Cinderella, because I was still in charge of the barn.
Oh,
I still
geez,
had to
yeah.
do like the mopping, the vacuuming. Like I had an hour of the chores every day. But
So you were
so
used to the hard work.
the hard work part was easy, and
Yeah.
basically the whole being pushed for sports translated into the job. And since I already worked restaurant jobs, luckily I got my social security card when I was digging around the house for it,
Yeah.
because I just ended up becoming a server for that 1 year in Illinois, working literally 50 hours a week because I didn't know what to do. I'm like, I don't have much plan in life. I'm just going to work and make money and save it. I opened my own like little bank account with the state thing on my own. Just I didn't really spend it because at first I didn't have any real friends.
Yeah.
And me and the boyfriend at the time, we would like go to the movies, go on walks, but we didn't do
Yeah.
anything like super expensive or crazy. It was just little local things.
Yeah.
And then it was really cool being like, it was my first time in my life where I felt like a community.
Yeah.
Because a bunch of the people in the restaurant, they were all the same age as me, college students there, even though I was in college.
Yeah.
But since I was working like all the shifts that I could, I met a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then they invited me to like go to their house. And I didn't have a car, but it was a college town, so I could just walk over, and everyone lived within a mile or two of each other.
Yeah.
So I would just walk to their house, play some board games. I went to some parties, and like they were all very low key parties, nothing crazy, maybe like 15 people. But I'm
did
like,
you
this
try
is
drinking
crazy.
for the first time?
I tried drinking a little bit.
Okay.
I never got super drunk or anything, but I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, this isn't bad. Like just relaxing, and now this was like my first time being like a kid / young adult,
Yeah.
and it was very enjoyable in that sense. Like having the community, having the friends, being
You
able
like
to
the
go to their house.
freedom, relationships.
I love that part.
Friends.
Even though it was an ugly town in a state that was foreign to me, I'm like, this is like the dream.
Yeah.
Which, if someone was to look at it, be like, you want a corn town, or you could have had like Florida, which was beautiful. I'm like, the corn town was like so much better.
Yeah.
But
I'm from Illinois. It's funny. I'm recovering from
recovering
Illinois.
from the Illinois grave.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
But even though I was still having like a really good time making my first like community friend where I could just
Yeah.
go to their house and chill with them, it was also like I had a lot of guilt and a lot of pent up emotion in me.
Mm-hmm.
So I sometimes would just go on walks and I would cry
Yeah.
because I felt guilty for leaving.
No.
And I was trying to talk to my parents a little bit. So I'm like, okay, now that they can't yell at me, now I can hang up, which is nice. So if she's yelling too much, there's always the end the call button. So I
Yeah.
tried calling her and him for mom, dad for a little bit.
Yeah.
Same thing. She would just yell at me, why'd you go? You're such an ingrateful, really berate me, belittle me, call me very negative words.
Yeah.
So I'm like, why would I talk to her? Let me just call the office to talk to my dad.
Yeah.
We did that a couple times. I just talked to him, and I was trying to state how I felt to him for really the first time in my life fully.
Yeah.
One time I called him when she was at the office, and like I didn't know she was at the office, and he picked up, and I could hear her screaming at him, and she's like, do not call here, you're not allowed to talk to him without me.
Jesus.
And that's when I stopped communicating with both of them
She's
for
just
like
brick walling.
a couple more months.
That's horrible.
So that was basically the summary of like Illinois. Like I got my first job, and I was still very smart about my money. I'm like, I don't want to just spend on stupid things. I want to build myself a future, and I have a lot of like goals. Seeing as
Yeah.
I didn't know what goals I had, I was in the exploring my options phase.
You might be the first person ever that ran away to Illinois.
Yeah, most people run away from Illinois to Florida.
So, eventually, you come back to Florida.
Yeah, so after sitting down with a friend who I met in the restaurant,
Yeah.
I thought she was very intelligent, and we were talking about our goals and everything, and I'm like, she's like, do you see yourself forever in Illinois? And I'm like, I like it here, but I don't think it's forever because that's the semesters left. Like people would come and go from the restaurant. They just would graduate, leave, and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
there's not much for me to do here. I don't know what I want to do with my life, but this is a very small town.
Yeah.
And I do want to accomplish something. I don't know what something is. So she's like, where else would you move? I'm like, if anything, I like Florida. I didn't like my house, but like Florida's fine. And like
Yeah.
scenery, and I know the job scene is good there.
Yeah.
And I'm sure like I was able to move here from a bad situation and make friends within a matter of months. And I feel I can take that skill and apply that wherever city I move to in the country or the world.
Yeah, now you've adapted a little bit
So now
you've caught up to, I guess, your peers.
And then me and the boyfriend at the time, we broke up. We had very different lifestyles, and we had different goals, so it did not work out.
Yeah.
So when I was talking to her, she's like, maybe you should move back to Florida. Not for family or anything, just to go to a bigger city now.
Yeah.
And try to start finding myself a real job. Because she was like, do you want to work in a restaurant for the rest of your life? And I said, no, I don't. I want something else. And she's like, well, in Illinois, in this town, unless you have a degree, your only option is a restaurant. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want that forever.
Yeah.
So I ended up flying back to Florida.
Okay.
I met up with X, and we were exploring 2 different little cities in Florida. And I interviewed for 2 like marketing type jobs just to feel it out. And I'm like, I don't know what I want. And I was with X for about 3 or 4 days. She's like, you could stay with me for as long as you need. Don't worry, I'm here for you. But I'm
does your mom know you're back?
She did not know I'm back. She didn't know I was coming back. Because after the whole
I mean, this is a year later, too.
Yeah, I was in Illinois for about a year.
Okay.
X was like, you could stay here. I'm like, the thing is, like, I love you, but I really want to have my own place or do my own thing. Like, I don't want to stay in the town I grew up in. I want to go somewhere else, just not sure where. Yeah. And then I'm like, I felt bad and still guilty, and I felt like I left on extremely bad terms. So, what if I contact my parents and meet for an hour or 2, have a restaurant sit down and
see if you can patch it up.
Make
some kind of salvage some kind of relationship.
We'll do something. So she's like, are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, why not? I don't think I thought this part through because this was more of a once I moved back to Florida. Because my original situation was not going to talk to them at all. But I'm like, while I'm here, I'll do it. So I either called or texted, and I just said, I'm in the town. I'm only going to be here for like a day or 2. If you want to sit down, we can.
Okay.
We all met at this restaurant because X dropped me off. And she's like, it was very awkward. It was just me, my mom, and my dad, I think. I don't think my sister was there.
Okay.
But maybe she was. I don't remember. But it was the most awkward conversation, most tensioned conversation / sit down with anyone I've ever had in my life.
Do you think she was trying to play nice?
I think she was trying to play nice.
Because that tension, I mean, from what you described growing up, it was yelling, it was screaming, it was, you do what I want.
No one was yelling.
No.
It was also in a public place. But
she also didn't have any power at that point, right? I mean, she can't tell you what to do, and you kind of proved that. But, that tension, like I can almost visualize, like maybe trying to play nice, maybe biting her tongue a little, and trying to maybe find a way to manipulate or to get back in or to get you to do what she wants again.
Yeah, what I gathered from them was like, okay, we didn't communicate well, we didn't have an understanding, let's try it again. Okay. And from that, I'm like, okay, I had hope. I'm like, now that all this year has happened, maybe this could be good again. I've heard stories where you just gotta leave, come back, and maybe this is that situation. So I agreed to move in with them for an unspecified amount of time. I said, we'll try it, let's see how it goes, and they're like, okay.
This is at the restaurant.
Yeah, this is at the restaurant.
You decided
so then we went back to X's house, picked up my 2 suitcases, went back to their parents' house. I was very uneasy there. I just kind of, kept to my house myself still. Try to make it like normal, make my breakfast, go outside. At this point, they gave the horses to the old trainer who actually moved. Yeah. So we don't have any horses at this point. Because I was like the only one involved with the horses.
So that time you moved back, I mean, just generally, how did that go? Did she fall back into control?
Yeah, so it started with a lot of hope for me, and I'm like, okay, I could finally maybe have a family that I always wanted. Okay. And then as the days went on, it wasn't even months, it was days. The dream shattered. I ended up getting like a job at a restaurant, so they would still drop me off at this new restaurant job. Because I still want
You
to, like,
still
make
don't
my
have a
own money.
driver's license.
No, I don't have a driver's license at this point. And I did get bullied a little bit because now I'm, like, 19, almost 20 or something like that. And they're like, why is she dropping you off? I'm like, well, I don't have a driver's license and I'm not allowed to drive. And now they just think I'm a sheltered kid.
Yeah.
I didn't tell anyone out this particular restaurant about the whole past year because I didn't know them. That was a lot of effort. I just kind of served my tables, was quiet, left. So that was like the only thing I was doing.
Why didn't you get a driver's license? Just didn't care to?
Well, I ended up getting it in the same little couple months time period.
Okay.
So I still, okay, the only time I was let out of the house still was to go work this restaurant. But now I had like actual shifts and I was working 40 hours a week because I'm an adult now.
And now you're 19, 20.
Yeah, I wanted to go to a little get together downtown. I saw it like online on some website. It was for like pop culture or something. And I'm like, this will be so fun. I asked if I could go and they're like, no. And I'm like, why not? They're like, it's late, it's 9 p.m. Lots of bad things could happen. Like, this is actually a pretty safe town. Like, chances are nothing bad's gonna happen.
And you just lived on your own for a year.
Yeah, where I was walking down the street, I was sleeping over at my coworker's house. So.
Yeah, and you learned decision making, and
nothing bad happened.
No.
So she's like, no, you can't go to that. And then I'm like, huh? And then I tried for one other thing, and I got no. Then I called my friend back in Illinois. I said, I think it's happening again. I've been here for like a month and a half, and I'm getting depressed how I was before. Everything I just overcame in the past year, it's coming back really, really quickly, and I didn't think it would affect me, and if it would, I thought it would take a longer time.
Yeah.
She's like, get out of there.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, how should I do this now? So they always wanted me to go to college. So how I ended up getting out of their house, I was probably there for 3 or 4 months.
Yeah.
And it went really bad for those 3 or 4 months. Like, the yelling to me was not as bad because I knew if they started yelling at me bad, I'm dipping.
Yeah.
So they were still very, very protective.
You knew you could get out.
Yeah, and I knew I would have just called someone and gotten out as soon as something went bad. So they weren't yelling as much. Still, like, some yelling, but nothing as... But they were yelling at my sister like 10 times worse.
Yeah.
And I said, if you want me to go to college, because I wanted to try to find like a happier, medium, compromise way out.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'll enroll 2 hours away in another college. And they were like, oh yeah, you should go to college.
Yeah.
So I ended up enrolling there. And I did pay for my tuition.
Yeah.
At the community college. It was cheaper because it was community. And even though I didn't have a GED or a high school diploma, because I did my 1 year of dual enroll, they accepted me at the community college. And how I got around up there, they did give me like a loaner car, a little Kia for that little bit. Because I got my driver's license literally the week before I got enrolled in this college.
But you're living separate. That's the important part.
Yeah, I'm still living separate. So during my 1.5 years at this college, and I only had to do 1.5 years because I had previous college credit.
Yeah.
I went to class. I still worked my little restaurant job in the other city. And I was communicating with them, just trying to keep it on neutral terms. It was definitely more negative than neutral. It was more just tolerate each other. Try not to make anything go south too much. But hey, I'm not there. I'm 2.5 hours away. They can't really just show up. So nothing too terrible went on in that period. Like, they still, like, got mad.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I would always, like, I'm working, I'm in school. I can't just come down for, like, that a weekend.
Seems like she's still holding something back, maybe.
Yeah, so I only went down to them, and they only came up to me a little bit. I don't know how many times, but it wasn't too many.
Yeah.
So it got through, and then I had my own college friends and stuff, and I was doing things. So it was fine. I was in the best relationship ever with them, even though it wasn't good. It was just more like tolerable because I was not there. And then I graduated from that school. Really good. I got like 3.8 GPA, better than my 1.7 beforehand.
Excellent.
And then for my AA, I went to a state college or state university to finish my bachelor's.
Okay.
Because the other one, the community college, just to get your AA. They didn't have like bachelor's programs. So I moved again to get my bachelor's. Now, I went down to them, a couple of times, whether it was a holiday or something. We try to speak few words just so nothing goes bad, and then I leave. It was more in, see your face, okay, cool, and leave.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to spend time to their house. If I never had to go to their house, I wouldn't. It was just to, maintain a relationship. Not good, just a relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now I'm in this new college, and I drive down for Thanksgiving. She blows up. Terrible, screaming like she hasn't done since I was in high school type screaming, lots of screaming.
Yeah.
And it was because I was telling her in this new college, university, it's a big university.
Yeah.
I joined some academic programs. I'm doing more of the big university type thing that people do, like a party or something. She's like, you went to a big party. Wow, you're going to get drugged. You're going to so many different things. You can't drink.
Jeez.
Oh, you joined, and I remember I said, I joined the Asian American group, and I went to a couple of their meetings. And now again, I'm only at this big university. Semester started August. Now it's only November.
Yeah.
So I'm very new to this, but making friends there was really easy because it is a big university.
Yeah.
And she's like, why'd you join the American Asian Society of this? And I'm like, well, because I'm Asian. I want to learn more. Now I'm I want to explore the culture, and it's interesting to see other Chinese kids there, and I want to talk to them.
Understand.
She went all out. She's like, you're not Asian, you're not Chinese, you're American, you're white.
Wow.
And I'm like, I'm
that's kind of
Chinese born, but I'm American raised, but there is still a mix in me.
Well, yeah.
So then she was like, you're not grateful for everything we've done. If you were in China, you would have been a sweat factory, or you would have been killed because of you're a girl and they didn't want girls, or a single policy, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So she was going how ungrateful I am to been adopted. And then I said some other little stuff, saying that we're very everyday conversation about new things I'm exploring.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do something in the arts, because when I was younger, writing was a form of escaping, and I would just do it as a passion. But I'm like, maybe I want to do writing more as a career. And she's like, well, that's not going to make you any money. I need you to do something else.
Yeah.
I'm like, but I really want to do this. And she's like, you don't know what's good for you. I know what's good for you.
It's control. It's that control again.
Yeah. And then after that Thanksgiving, something happened, because I stayed overnight. That was Thanksgiving dinner. Went terrible. No one talked. I get up in the morning, and she's like, okay, I thought about it. I need you out of this house. You're not part of this family. Something clicked. I don't know what. She's like, you're just really ungrateful. Go. So I had no saying. I'm like, okay, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
So then after that, I went back to the college. I talked to some of the friends, and I'm like, I really just need to cut them out of my life. I've tried now for 2 years after leaving. I was close to these three people.
It's a toxic relationship.
And it's a cycle. It keeps going.
Yep.
Even though now I'm a couple hours away.
She plays nice for a little while.
And then goes back.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, yeah, you need to get out of this. Yeah. And they were good friends. So they're like, okay, what if... And I was still paying for my school at this point. Mm-hmm. They did help me with the apartment. So they paid for the apartment. I paid for the college class.
Yeah.
And I'm still, working at a restaurant. So I said, I want nothing to do with them. I don't know if this is for now or forever, but I need to fully cut them out and not talk to them.
Yeah.
So I was still driving their car around. So I said, let's drop that off when they're not home. Just keep it in the driveway and then leave. And they're like, yeah, sure. We'll make it a little thing. We'll stop by another city, have dinner, go to the beach. I'm like, yeah, sure. Why not?
Yeah.
So the plan was, it was me and 4 friends. Me and one friend, one car, 2 other friends in the other car. We drove down a couple hours to my house, and we have a gated community, so you needed a passcode. And the other 2 friends, they got there 5 minutes before me, and they called, and they're like, what's the gate code? I'm like, try this code. And then they tried the code. I'm like, okay, it's not that, it changed. I'm like, there's a couple other codes, just wait for me to get there, because I think maybe I had a zapper or something in my car.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll be there soon. They're like, oh, wait. Don't worry, we just got in. They were only a minute ahead of us now.
Okay.
I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna let you in. Sure. I'm like, now don't go to my parents' house, because I gave them the address. I'm like, just in case she was home, because now I don't know her current schedule.
Yeah.
I'm like, just stay like on the road next to it. I'm gonna drop off our friend like to your car.
Yeah.
I'll drive it in the driveway and I'll walk back to you.
Okay.
Just in case. Yeah, we're taking full precaution.
You get a whole plan here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they started driving, and they're like, this car is like going to your house. And I'm like, is it a white Trailblazer? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, yeah, don't go close to that. That's my mom. And they're like, yeah, she's not like turning around and circling our way and stuff. And I'm like, just get away from her. That's probably my mom.
Yeah.
I'm like, just stay away. If anything, drive away.
Yeah.
And then I get in, and now my mom's the street right next to our house, and she pulls up next to me because obviously she knows the car.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I rolled down my window. I said, I'm dropping off the car. And then the person who was passenger to me, he got out, went back to the other car. And I'm like, because I didn't want him like involved with what's about to happen. So I go into our driveway. My whole plan was just to turn the car off, leave the key in the seat, and go.
Yeah.
Well, she dragged me out of the seat. Like I parked the car, I turned it off, and I was like opening the door. She dragged me out.
Oh, jeez.
And like, she like choked me, and she was like pulling me. And it was like, the first time she was extremely physically abusive, and like she was like, you need to go talk to your dad and get inside. And I'm like, no, I'm just like trying to get out of her. I'm not like super strong, but like I just was trying to get out of her arm. Then she was like trying to pull me and like put her arm around my neck. Like I don't think she was trying. She was trying to just like drag me in the best she could. Like I literally like slipped out from her arm somehow and like ran to the friend's car.
Jeez.
And then we drove away. And that was the last interaction I ever had with like her, the family, the house, or anything.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's an intense story. It really is. And that's, she just didn't want to let you go.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't for your sake.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like, once again, a recurring theme.
Mm-hmm. Like, to this day, like, after that physical abuse, which was a lot more than the emotional. Like, the emotional and the words, and, like, the violin with everything, that was emotional, mental abuse was a little bit of physical, but the one big physical accident was a lot more than the emotional, which made me, like, because I figured maybe I'd go into this thing where I want to contact them again, but no, from then on, like, when I think of them, I think of that, and I'm like, I can't do that anymore.
Well, it clearly wasn't working either.
Mm-hmm.
Everything you did to try to patch things up.
And then just driving by, like, having my 3 friends from college look at her, one of the things one of the friends said, he said, seeing her face literally sucked the life out of me of how mean she looks.
Jeez.
And I'm like, yeah.
So, I mean, that was a couple years ago.
That was about 4 years ago, something like that.
So, what kind of, I mean, just from the high-pressure childhood, the helicopter parenting, the emotional abuse, what kind of lasting effects do you feel like you still like?
So, for, like, the negative effects, when I think back to it in detail, like, giving those 2 stories, like, I still cry.
Yeah.
It's, like, hard to relive. She comes back in dreams. There's been, it's not too often, but maybe once every 3 months, I get a really intense dream where, like, I'll wake up crying, and the dream is just her yelling at me, or choking me, or something very bad.
It's like a little PTSD.
It's very intense in the dream, and I wake up, and, like, I'm still shaking.
Yeah.
And I tried therapy from 2 different people, a couple sessions. They were like, talk it out, but it wasn't going to many places. And I felt like the most relief I get is just talk it out with like friends versus a professional.
Yeah. What do you ever get like intrusive thoughts? Like waking, like while you're awake?
Yeah,
like where something just washes over you?
It usually doesn't happen too randomly unless I'm just really thinking about it. And now that a bunch of years have passed, I don't just ponder it anymore. I just want to let it go. But if something were to ask me about it, like I can tell the story vaguely without the details and I'm okay.
Yeah.
The details make it harder. But
thank you for sharing those too. I mean,
little things like if I feel like I'm disappointing someone or if I'm a failure, then her voice will come in my head like, you're disappointing me, you're not doing well enough, you'll never succeed. And that just, it kind of is a broken record in my mind. It just goes, and I'll be at work. And there was one instance where I broke down at work because I was just feeling a little sick that day. And then instead of like telling my boss I need to go home or anything, I just, from tiny sick, it just was like, if I tell my boss I need to go home, he's going to think I'm a failure. He's going to be disappointed. He's never going to, I'm not dependable. And so from a little thing, those words kept going, and then I just started crying. And he was like, what's wrong? I'm like, I just started breaking down. He was very not aware of the situation because I don't just tell people this like on the daily.
But that's, you know, a little bit of trauma, I think, and you're still carrying, I guess, from that abuse, so to speak. You're still carrying that a little bit now, and that's tough. What would you say to someone in a situation like yours, or what would you have told yourself back then when you were younger, maybe when you could have spoken to someone about it? Or
I would say speaking to someone would be step one, because I didn't realize that was an option, whether I could talk to a school teacher or a coach in depth about the situation and let it out that way and see if there was ways they could step in to help. I just didn't know I could have done that because I was either one, too depressed to reach out, or two, my mom had so much control. I felt fearful to speak out about it when I was young. And then I would say, like, if you can't talk to anyone, also try to have a good relationship with yourself. So you don't resent yourself and hate yourself for outside things that you can't control at all. So really understanding yourself of the action and how this is going.
Loving yourself, forgiving yourself.
And really forgive yourself for whatever's happening at the time. And then it's hard to be optimistic at the time, but like it's not forever. And at one point there'll be like a way out.
And you're doing well now.
After university, I graduated cum laude, did really well.
Oh, wow.
I've had a boyfriend for the past year and a half. We're doing well. I have a very stable job. And then I say the most important thing, I have a very good friend group. And I know if anything were to happen, I could rely on them. But even if it's a fun thing, they're always down to go to a concert or something. So I'd say that's like the thing that I'm most grateful for right now in my life, or supportive friends.
Well, that's awesome to hear. And I mean, you seem to be doing great. And thank you for sharing that story. I mean, it's a hell of a story. And I think it was important that you tell it, and important for other people that might be experiencing that, or even parents, you know, that are, I guess, being way too hard on their kids. I mean, that's, you want your kids to do well, but that's a story of just control and expectations and just being way too hard. So.
And I wanted to share it, and even if I cry, I want kids who are in the situation to know they're not alone. And that they can overcome it, even though the road to overcome it is very hard. And then for people who are outside of it, sometimes they look in and say, you have everything you can want. You have a nice house. You get any toy you want. Your clothes are good, new. But in reality, like, unless you're seeing the full picture, there's a lot of stuff that happens behind the closed door.
It's not what it seems. You might have looked lucky or privileged, but in a lot of ways, you had so much less than other kids had, as far as love, understanding, support, stuff like that. Well, thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for tuning into the Redacted podcast. Till next time, take care, stay out of trouble. We'll see you in church.